Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of ISACA Sri Lanka chapter, I would like to welcome you all for this webinar. Since there are members from other professional bodies, let me quickly introduce ISACA. ISACA, which was previously known as Information Systems Audit and Control Association, is an association for information security, governance, and professionals, which started in the year 1969. ISACA has its headquarters in USA and has more than 145,000 professionals worldwide in 180 countries. The association currently focuses on assurance, security, and governance and provides globally recognized certifications in these areas. Talking about ISACA Sri Lanka chapter, the Sri Lankan chapter started in the year 1996. So we have a history of 25 years. And currently there are 250 members. It's incorporated as an association under the Companies Act of Sri Lanka. And also ISACA is the professional chapter of FITIS. The aim of the local chapter is to sponsor local educational seminars and workshops and conduct regular meetings and help to further promote and elevate the visibility of information systems, audit, control, and security profession throughout the country. In the recent past, ISACA Sri Lanka chapter has been very active, and we have provided more than 200 CPE points worth of events annually. ISACA Sri Lanka chapter also has 4 student chapters, namely UCSC, NSBM, SLIIT, and University of California. So due to the good work of the chapter, we have received awards, international recognition awards. So 2013, 2015, and 16, we received the K. Vine Snipes Award for the regional West Medium chapter. And to make it big, this time around last year, 2021, we have won the Outstanding Chapter Award at a global level. These are the ISACA certifications. Most of the certifications are targeting professionals, but recently we have few certifications targeting associates as well. So as I mentioned before, we have been having quite a lot of events by ourselves and also together with our MOU partners. So these are some of the events what has happened since June 2021. So ISACA Sri Lanka chapter also has Sheely Tech initiative, which is to encourage women participation in the field of information systems, auditing, governance, and security. So let me start by thanking our supporting partners, FITIS, CSSL, SLASCOM, BCS Sri Lanka, ISC Squared, CA Sri Lanka, CFA Sri Lanka, and IAP. I would also like to thank our sponsors, Synetcom, LOLC Technologies, and Cyberlabs. Okay, so coming to the topic today, the changing face of ITSM. So today we are going to have a very interesting discussion. Unlike our previous events, this is not going to be a pure speech. We have the best person to talk about this topic. So we are going to basically ask questions from him, and he's going to enlighten us on IT service management and its related areas. If you have any questions as well, please type in your questions on the chat window. But you have the Q&A chat window on the Zoom platform. So let me introduce the speaker for today. The speaker is none other than Mr. Nagarajah Nirmalan. Nirmalan holds over 27 years of experience in the IT industry, serving in various capacities, including many C-level positions. Currently, he serves as the CEO, Principal Consultant of Kenvisa, and an Advisory Chief Process Officer. He is specialized and certified in global best practices, frameworks, and business process in the areas of IT and management, and a contributor to the global practices, and also serves as SME in global panels. His experience includes working with more than 150 organizations worldwide, including many global brands and Fortune 500 companies covering several industry sectors. In addition, he has over 25 years of experience as a visiting faculty covering many universities, undergraduate and postgraduate programs worldwide in the areas of IT and business management. He has also served many professional societies and industry associations, executive boards in various capacities, including honorary secretary, vice president, president, chairman, etc. He is also a chartered fellow of BCS UK. So from the profile itself, we all know that he's the best person to talk about ITSM with his qualifications and experience. It talks a lot. So we are privileged to have him. So Nirmalan, welcome on board. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation.
Thanks, Prashanthan, for that kind introduction.
Okay. So as I mentioned, so this is a slightly different format. So we are going to answer the questions. I mean, you are going to answer the questions. So let me start with few questions, and I'm sure there'll be more questions from the participants. So to start with, could I ask you, okay, what is ITSM?
Okay, that's an interesting question. By definition, ITSM stands for IT Service Management. It's a strategic approach for designing, delivering, managing, and improving the way IT is used within an organization. So in simple form, we started this journey in 1980s. So at the time, what we had is mostly, we had IT in the form of technology. There was no organization of IT. So UK government took an initiative in putting this into an order and bringing out a guide which has emerged to the current state. So this is a practice which has emerged for the past 40 years. And this basically serves in organizing IT for better service delivery.
Great. Thank you for that answer. So, okay, talking about IT service management, there are plenty of frameworks and best practices. So, could you enlighten us what are the frameworks or best practices or standards that are there for ITSM? And if you can briefly tell us what it covers.
Okay. ITSM, when it started, I'm talking somewhere in 1980s, we had ITIL. ITIL stands for IT Infrastructure Library Services. This is the only de facto standard that we had, but it's a best practice. Nowadays, we have FITSM. It's a very lightweight practice. We have ISO 20000 as a standard. And also we have unified service management, a bit different from the service management perspective, but still address the service management at a large scale. So now if you look at these practices, we have one standard, that is ISO 20000. So this is also can be used to adapt IT service management practices. But it's being a standard, you normally look into a compliance perspective. But if you're looking at other practices, ITIL, FITSM, all these falls on to best practice. So we either adapt or adopt, AD-APT or AD-OPT.
All right. So very interesting. So, right.
Your second part of the question, what areas it covers? ITIL, say now, like ITIL is the common practice which is used in many cases, though ITSM is there. It's a recently emerged practice. So ITIL been there for 40 years. It's very heavy. It covers a very large spectrum of areas, starting with management of IT, strategic management, vendor management, contract management, supplier management, business relationship management, security management, continuity management, availability management, delivery management, configuration management. It goes on and on. So it covers a huge spectrum of areas. Almost everything that end-to-end IT service provisioning environment required is covered there.
Great. So you talked about ITIL. So I'm sure there are versions. Maybe 10 years back, I think ITIL version 3 was very famous, but now version 4 has come in. So could you briefly explain sort of what is ITIL version 3, version 4, and maybe you can briefly explain about the differences also?
Okay, Prashant, can I use slides for this?
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
Right, so ITIL V3, let's start with V3. V3 actually had, it's a library, right, as I told you before. So it had core publications and complementary guidance. So this core publication has basically 5 books or 5 volumes of books. And where organization use these for best practices. Then we had complementary guidance, which basically told how ITIL could be used in various industry sectors, organization types, operating models, and technology architecture. So if you look at the core, we have 5 phases or 5 life cycle phases. We had a service strategy, service design, service transition, service operation, and continual service improvement. Now, if you look at each of these areas, ITIL strategy basically focused on managing the overall strategy for IT services and defining the business requirements. So we had different processes within this particular life cycle phase, starting with financial management, demand management, portfolio management, strategy for IT services, business relationship management. This basically delivered the service strategy requirements. Then we have service design. This basically defined IT services based on business requirements. So it covered service catalog management, service level management, capacity, availability, continuity, security, supplier management, and also design coordination. Now, if you look at this slide, you will see some of them are in blue color. In service strategy, there are 2 processes, and service design, there is 1 process. So these are newly introduced in 2011. Before ITIL version 3 was released in 2007, and then it got refined in 2011. So in 11, they introduced another 3 more processes. Then we have a service transition. Basically what happens here, it package, builds, tests, and deploys the services to the production environment. So this will have a transition planning, change management, asset and configuration management, release and deployment management, validation and testing, evaluation, knowledge management. All these processes were there. Then we had a service operation, which had 5 processes and 4 functions, which is responsible for the day-to-day management of IT services. So which had event management, incident management, request fulfillment, problem management, access management as processes, and service desk, application management, IT operations management, technical management as functions. Then we had for all these in parallel. If you see the diagram, it shows one centered circle outside the 4 other phases. That's your continual service improvement, which can happen at any point. So it can be in service strategy, service design, transition, or operation. So this is a process focused on continual alignment and realigning IT services to the changing business needs by identifying and implementing improvements to IT services that supports the business services. So this had one process called 7-step improvement process. It also had a model to support this. So this is the whole part that you see in your B3. And also, as I told you, it has complementary publication. This is addition to what you saw before. So it had qualification schemes. What are the qualifications? Who can do these qualifications? Study aids to support your education process. Then executive introduction, it's a brief for the executive management, the benefits of adopting ITIL. Also it had templates, specific and specialized topics like blockchain, whatever the topics which came newly were adapted there. Then knowledge and skills that is required to adapt ITIL. Then on the other side, the governance method, how ITIL was implemented successfully, and the governance methods that was adapted in successfully doing so. Then different standards. ITIL comes with multiple other best practice and standard references. So how this could be aligned? Simple example, ITIL and maybe ISO 27000. How do you align these two? Right, all that guidance is there on that. Then case studies to show the success stories and how ITIL is implemented. In addition, you have quick wins because ITIL took a long time for implementation. So how do you reap benefits without waiting till the last moment? Then you have another set of guidance on how to scale ITIL to fit for large scale, small scale organizations. And also an update service, it's a web portal to support this guidance. So we had qualification schemes starting from foundation up to intermediate, advanced, and up to expert level. So the highest qualification that you could reach on V3 was the ITIL expert level. V4 V4 came in 2019. So this has two components. We have a 4-dimensional model. A 4-dimensional model will look like this, which has Pestel factors and 4 specific areas like organization and people, information and technology, value streams and processes, partners and suppliers. Now, this 4-dimensional model supports holistic approach to service management and are relevant to and impact upon all elements of ITIL service value system. So what we are seeing, we have two components. One is a 4-dimensional model and service value system. 4-dimensional model have internal environment and external environmental factors which you need to consider in order to adapt service value system. So what is the service value system? It's a model demonstrating how the components and activities of an organization work together to facilitate value creation through IT-enabled services. So you will see you have guiding principles, governance, you have service value chain, practices, and continual improvement. And on both sides, you have opportunities, demand, and finally, a value comes as an outcome. So looking at principles, there are 7 principles. These are recommendation and organization, these are recommendations that can guide organization in all circumstances, regardless of changes in your goals, objectives, strategies, type of work, or management structure. So we have focus on value, start where you are, progress iteratively, collaborate, work holistically, keep it simple, optimize and automate as 7 principles. Then we have a service value chain. It is a set of interconnected activities that an organization performs in order to deliver valuable product or service to its customers and facilitate value realization. So if you see here, you see demand, where the desire or need of internal or external customers are addressed in delivering value to the customer. There are a number of activities in this. Then we have a management practice. These are a set of organizational resources designed for performing work or accomplishing an objective. So ITIL 4 has 34 practices organized into 3 specific areas called general management practices, service management practices, and technical management practices. You have 14 general management practices, 17 service management practices, and 3 technical management practices. Then we have governance. Now, when you talk about governance here, it is a means by which an organization is directed and controlled. This will enable the organization to ensure its operations are always aligned with its strategy. Then we have a continual improvement. It is a recurring organizational activity performed at all levels to ensure that an organization's performance continuously meet stakeholder expectation. Coming back to qualification scheme, it's changed now. We have two streams, one focusing on managing professional and one focusing on strategic leader. We'll have a create, deliver, and support as one specialized track. Stakeholder value, driving stakeholder value as another track. High velocity IT as another track. And direct plan and improve another track in supporting that managing a professional. Under strategic leader, we have again direct plan and improve. It's a repeated module, and digital and IT strategy as another module to complete. But you will have to start with foundation. So if you're talking about differences of these two, actually what we have done in V3, we had a life cycle concept, which we have shifted to service value system. So service value system covers everything there. Governance principles, practices, continual improvement, and service value chain. In V3, we had 26 processes and 4 functions, which is now 34. So we have introduced few, and the functions also have become practices. Then in V3, in 2016, we introduced 9 principles, which is brought down into 7 principles. Before we had 4 P's of service design, which is known as product, people, process, product, partners. And that has brought into 4 dimensions of service management. So this is the summary form of difference that you can see. But there are a lot of things which has not changed, but the viewpoint has changed.
Great, thank you. I think that was a very in-depth explanation on version 3, version 4 differences. So, so how does the version 3, so somebody who has got certified in version 3, can they still continue with version 3, or should they upgrade themselves to version 4, or how does it go? How does the bridging go?
Actually, till 2021 December, anybody who were ITIL expert were allowed to do a transition into ITIL V4, and also the people who had credits, they were able to transfer some of them. But currently, the entire flexibility which was given to, like, do and, like, use the previous credential to make use of it here is no more. So whether you like it or not, you start off with the ITIL foundation in V4 and proceed your way through. And also, like, you can see the coverage, right? And now ITIL 4 is more towards digital transformation, customer experience, value streams. This does not mean by doing foundation you're going to get it. You need to go through the whole journey in knowing that.
Okay, great. So fine. So let's get into the real world. We were talking about the ITIL, the theoretical aspects, what is covered and not covered. Let's move into the real world. I think there are a couple of questions from the participants. One has taken the healthcare sector and the other has taken pick me or Uber, one of them, right? So service industry. So the question is, how does ITSM applicable for a service sector like Uber or healthcare?
See, ITSM, ITIL. Now let's talk about ITIL because that's the practice that everybody is into. ITIL basically is the base for any service management practice, whether you have completely moved into cloud or whichever form you are delivering. That's the complete guide. But now we have adopted the new ways of working of agile, lean, DevOps, all of those into ITIL. So if you're talking about healthcare sector or maybe Uber or whatever it is, which is completely automated services, your end-to-end practice can be implemented through ITIL.
All right. Okay. Good. So, right. So I have a question on Agile DevOps. I think these are hot topics, not so new. It's quite old, but still, I think these are hot topics in Sri Lanka. So how does Agile DevOps, which are quite famous, how is it used in organization, and how will ITIL, blend with this? How does it go together with ITIL?
ITIL 4 has basically embraced the new ways of working. That is lean, agile, and DevOps. So we have incorporated those new ways of working in ITIL 4. That's one of the biggest change that is being adopted.
Okay.
ITIL is a practice which basically has emerged more than 40 years. And what has been happening is, this is not a theoretical practice. This is a practice of somebody who have practiced, identify those practices as best practices, which is brought in, tested in multiple different industry sectors, and then brought into books as guidance. So we are talking about somebody else's experience.
Right. And since we are talking about organizations and service delivery, I'm sure some organizations manage their own IT, right? Whereas some organizations outsource their IT services, or at least part of their IT services. For example, somebody needing a core banking or a core application, if they don't have the capacity to build it themselves, obviously will go for a third-party application, or sometimes they might get the service of a professional software development company. I mean, typical example. So, like, I'm sure there's something called service catalog. Maybe you can touch on that because from a practical aspect, definitely you need to have a service catalog where you specify what are the services, what do you expect from it, what is the SLA. So maybe just to shed some light on it, because I'm sure people might want some practical examples on how they could implement these kind of service catalogs in their own organizations. You want to share some experience on that, some best practices?
Yeah, service catalog. Okay, yes. Now, if you have done some electronic publishing or whatever the form you have published, a service catalog basically tells what you are going to offer to the customer end to end. What are the limitations? What are the guidelines for it? What are the pre-requirements? What are the post-requirements? What you are going to do from your part, and what is expected from the other side of it. If that is a consistent document which is maintained, definitely that will be a confident guide for a customer who is walking in, and they can see the fit for purpose very clearly. this purpose which they come for to, like, buy your services or whatever products or whatever it is, need to be assured in the form of warranty that you will continuously get this throughout the existence of your engagement. So we assure that through security, continuity, availability, and this capacity. So the important part here is the initial part of attraction come from your service catalog that you are offering such a service. So the clarity on the service that you offer will make a bigger impact on the customers, because some of the contracts that we see on engagement, that doesn't come out with a very clear specification what you're going to get. It doesn't tell you what is your maximum, what is your minimum, right? Simple example, if you look at your mobile broadband connection, it doesn't officially say very clearly, like, what are your maximum limit and what are your minimum limits. What will happen if you exceed your maximum limit? What will happen if the service provider didn't provide that limit for you? So basically, adopting these will create a lot of standardization to the industry, and also it will bring customer trust. Right. Coming back to service level agreements, service level agreements are not made as and when you wish, in the way that you wish. We have calculations and mechanisms to ensure that it can be addressed. Right. Now, a 99.9 availability-based SLA has a huge impact. Now, the question is, when you say 99.9% availability SLA, is it with planned service downtime included or excluded? Right? So if it is with inclusion, then actually you're not giving 99.9. You are giving very much less than that, right? And it's based on the service. So all the service, you don't need that. It depends on how the customer is going to utilize the service. So if you have an awareness, those things can be negotiated and those things can be incorporated.
Okay. Good. Yeah, thank you for that explanation.
I see some of the questions. Can I quickly answer some of these questions?
Yeah, I think we have answered two of them. There is a question on ITIL foundation to expert, how you should proceed. You want to touch on that?
ITIL, there is no expert level anymore. Okay. That's over. Now you have a managing professional and managing strategic leader. So basically you need to start with your foundation, then you can do the specialized modules and gain those certifications. And please understand, ITIL qualification doesn't expire. Only thing, you can't do the examination anymore. So expert is still an expert, but only thing, in the current scheme, you will not be able to do those exams.
So somebody who was a ITIL version 3 expert level consultant, how does he have to start from foundation, or can he do a bridging course and get into that?
No, he can do a bridging course, but not anymore.
Okay. Right. So coming back to ITIL, which is the main framework for IT service management, what are the misconceptions or myths surrounding ITIL? How does people misuse it, or I would say misinterpret it? You would have seen definitely so many examples in the practical world. Maybe if you can shed few things.
Not
with the names, but
Yeah, but let's not talk about the sensitive areas. But generally, people have a misconception, or it's been marketed as, if you do ITIL Foundation, it covers digital transformation, which is completely wrong. There is nothing much covered, or I would say nothing covered in ITIL 4 Foundation for digital transformation. Maybe there are supporting practices which is spoken, but specifically, no. But if you do the complete ITIL, yes, that is the end-to-end guide for digital transformation. Please note one important thing in ITIL. ITIL refers to many practices, specifically like TOGAF, Prince2, MOR, MOP, MSP, ISO 20,000, ISO 27,000, ISO 31,000. So many different practices and standards. Having referred, they don't tell you end-to-end how to adapt that or practice that, or the relevance of it. They are in detail. So unless otherwise you have a detailed knowledge of those, you are still in a gray area. So doing ITIL completely, still you may not be able to do a lot of things in terms of the supporting practices perspective, unless otherwise you are aware of those things.
Okay. Right. If an organization,
Prashant, I see a lot of questions surrounding healthcare and Uber and things like that. If you are looking at a demonstrating answer for that, it's going to be a long shot. I don't know whether we will be able to do that. We'll have to take up that separately. But yes, any service sector, ITIL can be utilized. And that's the base. Everywhere you go, that's the base. Even DevOps, SRE practices, which is coming up. That's the base. Without ITSM, you can't do many things. But using tools, if you try, then you have your own problems to address.
Okay, there is another question on if a service provider falls short of IT service management or ITIL best practices. So there's a question, what's going to be the step? So you
obviously adapt it. You can adapt it. See, ITIL doesn't tell you hard and fast, if you don't do this, this is what is going to go wrong. Or if you don't practice ITIL, you're not going to be there, or you're not considered as practicing ITIL. You practice ITIL as per your convenience. You feel there is a benefit, you practice. That's it. So you can adapt that anytime that you want and refine yourself and improve yourself.
Yeah. No, I think here the question would be from a service receiver point of view. If you have outsourced your service to a third-party service provider, and if you feel that their service is not aligning with ITIL best practices, they're asking what you do. So maybe, as you said, you can ask them to benchmark their services and maybe upgrade the level of service to ITIL.
Or you can do an assessment,
okay,
and see the gaps and ask them to provide those or fulfill those gaps.
Okay. Since there was a question on the benchmarking, if an organization is looking for a IT service management consultant, what are the things they need to look for? Maybe you can address that question also with this.
IT service management consultant basically definitely should be an ITIL expert or managing professional. Preferably, I would suggest if they have traveled from at least from V2, V3, V4, or V3 and V4, it is something great, because they understand, because majority of the organizations are not yet ready for V4. So they may be in V3 situations. So that will basically give a bigger support and confidence. But that alone is not going to be sufficient enough. The surrounding practices, the knowledge of surrounding practices also are very important.
Okay, so with the technological improvement, digitization and all that in place, those are the buzzwords, and I'm sure in next 2, 3, 5 years time, these things. So what is the future for ITSM? What do you think ITSM is heading towards?
ITSM, ITSM in the sense, again, like, it basically comes back to ITIL. ITIL being heavy, it has been realized by small companies to go for lightweight ITSM practices like FITSM. So that is also happening in Europe. The European Union has endorsed FITSM. And with that endorsement, things are moving towards that side. People who find ITIL as too heavy. Actually, ITIL is heavy. But beyond that, if you look at within ITIL, ITIL is moving towards an enterprise service management practice. And definitely the adoption of full DevOps and SRE, site reliability engineering, is coming in the future very strongly. Currently, DevOps is there, but SRE practices are not being spoken much. Maybe here and there it's there, but that is going to definitely come in more strong. And on top of it, artificial intelligence-based service management practices are going to come in. Already we see chatbots and things like that are emerging. Then a lot of focus is going to go towards customer experience. And this is one of the major areas that will get focused. And there is a real need behind it. And also ITIL getting into more flexible mechanism with digital transformation in terms of adaptability of applications. Definitely zero trust security concepts, artificial intelligence-based security mechanisms will get incorporated. So these are the main things that I see at this point in time.
So interesting. So I think we need to be updated with all this, so that we are also keeping abreast with whatever the new technologies and how ITSM could be provided. Yeah, good. So thank you for that detailed explanation. So one final question from me is, okay, we have spoken a lot about individuals getting certified and the bridging courses and all that. But if you want to benchmark your organization with the ITSM best practices, are there any standards which you can adopt and certify your organization so that you could say that I'm a level 3 or level 4 or maybe some ISO standard organization?
ISO standard is always there. That is ISO 20000 is a service management standard. So normally standards focus on minimum requirements, right? So that's where your audit and compliance comes in. Now we have assessment models. ITIL assessment model is there, which goes into different maturity level. So yes, if you are at that level, yes, you can get yourself assessed and certified. But ITIL doesn't come out with a recommendation for that, because ITIL is all about adoption and adoption based on your benefit. But
Okay.
yes, we do have.
So you talked about ISO 20000. I believe that's like any other standard. It's 3 years cycle, right? It works. So, and every year you are supposed to get surveillance audits. Okay. Right. Good. Any other questions? We can take up maybe 1 or 2 questions if there's any from the audience. Okay. Since there are no questions, we can wind up. So thank you very much, Nirmalan, for sharing your thoughts, and it was a very in-depth discussion on IT service management. I'm sure the audience would have got a lot of understanding, and we discussed about frameworks, standards. So I'm sure it was a very useful session. So those of you who took part from different professional bodies, we'll be sending out the participants list to your coordinators. So you don't need to type in your membership numbers on the chat window. We can extract it from Zoom and we'll be sending it out. So don't worry about the CPE or CPD points. And we'll be having monthly sessions on this. So 3rd of March, we'll be having our next hybrid session event on securing your hybrid cloud environment. That's the topic. So we'll be sending out the emails and posting on our social media, Facebook and LinkedIn page. So please keep browsing our Facebook and LinkedIn page where we post all the latest events. So I would like to end this session by thanking Nirmalan and thanking all the participants who were very patient. Stay safe, and thank you.
Thanks, Prashant.